I'm pretty sure that almost every adoptive mom's worst fear is the day that their child says to them, "I miss my real mom." Pretty vividly remember the day when my daughter said, "I miss my real mom." And my first reaction was to think, am I not real? Is the stuff I'm doing every day, being your mom, not real to you? But I quickly understood that this feeling actually makes a lot of sense. And when I really thought about it, my daughter was not saying it in a rude or mean way. She was simply expressing her feelings. But I think no matter what way our kids say that, there is a truth behind it. And it's not necessarily a truth that means anything negatively about you as their adoptive parent. And at the time of posting this video, it is only a few days until Mother's Day. And so I want to talk about why Mother's Day can be really hard for adoptive moms and their kids, and also give you some practical tips to survive the holiday together. And welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie and I'm a foster care adoption consultant. I work with families from all across the country who are going through their foster care adoption journey. My husband Nick and I have 3 children who we adopted from foster care, and we have been through all the roller coasters, all of the up and downs, and we've learned some things along the way. So I'm happy to share this with you today regarding this whole concept of Mother's Day. I know you might think, I'm not a mom yet, I don't have kids in my home, but I do think you'll get some insights from this video that can really help you understand what it is like to be an adoptive parent. But if you want to see if you're actually ready to adopt, definitely check out my free quiz in the description box below. This quiz helps you decide if you are truly ready for adoption. So click on that link and get that quiz. Okay, so why is it that Mother's Day is so difficult for both adoptive moms and adoptees? Well, first of all, one of the biggest reasons why this is the case is because our kids who are adopted typically experience torn loyalties. And it can feel very easy to kind of have an us versus them mentality, or they can kind of pit you and their biological family against each other within their heads. It is a hard concept to imagine having multiple families and that being okay and there not being some sort of competition. And so for a lot of our kids, the idea of celebrating you as their mom, as their adopted mom, can often feel like, if I love this mom, that means I'm dishonoring this other one. And we want to understand that that is a common feeling adoptees experience, not just around Mother's Day, but just in general. And so you may actually find that on Mother's Day, your adopted child is far worse for you than on any other day. And, I think a lot of us go into Mother's Day with these expectations. We don't have our expectations too high, but I think there's a little bit of an expectation of like, hey, it's Mother's Day. Could you just be like, kind to me this one day and not blow up and not throw a huge fit or have a huge meltdown. But the truth is that is very difficult. And so with those torn loyalties, they can feel like not only do they not want to celebrate you, they almost feel like they need to act out against you or be unkind to you as a way of expressing their love and their appreciation for their biological mom. So that is one reason why this day can be really difficult. Another reason is that they might just really be sad on this day. And the reason they're sad could be a couple reasons. Number one is they could be remembering all of the nice times that they did have with their biological mom. Even when a parent is neglectful or abusive or is not able to properly care for a child, that doesn't mean that they're completely and 100% a bad person with no good qualities. I think it's easy for us to say, oh, everything has to be so black and white. You're a hero or you're a villain. And in this case, a lot of times people will view the foster or adoptive parent as a hero and they will view the biological parent as a villain. But this is just not true. We all have strengths and weaknesses and good things and bad things that come along with who we are. We all do things that are wrong. And so we also all have some parts of us that are good. And so I think it's important to remember that even if your child experienced neglect at the hands of their biological mom, they very likely still have some sort of positive memory. And maybe that memory was just the way they felt when they hugged their mom, or maybe it was this one time on their birthday when they didn't have a lot of money, but their mom took them to the Dollar Tree and let them pick out a couple things. Those types of memories are important. And on Mother's Day, it's very possible that your child has those memories front and center. There's all this advertising around Mother's Day, like moms are so great, all this stuff. And it might just be reminding them of the good times that they did have with their biological mom. And so obviously that could create sadness, that could create almost a sense of regret that they're not with that mom anymore, even if they do love you and they do appreciate what you do for them in a general way. It can be really hard for them to express that if they're also at the same time grieving the loss of their first mom. It just reminds them of the loss of the life that they could have had. I also think that this day can remind kids of the negative memories with their biological moms. And maybe they don't really have a lot of positive memories, or they have a lot of anger in their hearts towards their biological moms for not really pulling things together to take care of them in the right way. And oftentimes you'll see that these feelings and those positive feelings I mentioned before are commingled. It's not just one or the other. There's these positive memories, but then they're interwoven with this anger towards the bio parent that the child may have. So like, why weren't you able to get things together for me? Why weren't you able to take care of things for me and take care of me? And so that could lead to a lot of anger and resentment. And even though you as the adoptive mom are not the one who caused this pain, like you did not cause them to go into foster care, you did not cause them to need to be adopted, they associate you with the fact that they don't have this life that they should have had. They should have had a mom who was able to take care of them, who put them first, who was able to meet all their needs. They should never have had to go into foster care and be adopted. That's just not the best case scenario. As much as we love our adopted children and we can't imagine what life would be like without them, we have to understand that for our adopted children, life could have gone very differently for them. And the fact that they had to be adopted is actually not the best case scenario for their lives. And I know that can be hard to understand, but think about it. If you had the option of growing up in a family that loved you from the start, cared for you from the start, you didn't have to experience all this pain and all this separation and all this neglect, wouldn't you choose that over the opposite? I think we all would choose that. We wouldn't want to go through those things. And that doesn't mean that adoption isn't beautiful. I truly think it is. I know there are some adoptees who feel differently. I truly think a lot of beauty can come out of that brokenness, out of those broken relationships. Something really beautiful can be formed. And so that doesn't discredit that at all, but we just need to understand that for our kids, they may truly regret that they were adopted, and it has nothing to do with you being a bad adoptive parent, although we're all bad at some points. I am sure there are days where my daughter's been like, I really wish that you did not adopt me because you're mean, I'm sure those days happen. But overall, these feelings generally come from more of what could have been and what they didn't get to experience rather than something that you have necessarily done as an adoptive parent. And so this whole Mother's Day can just remind kids of the loss that they have experienced. And so a day that should feel happy, quote unquote, a day that we would hope our kids would maybe step back and maybe just realize maybe one little thing we do for them of all the things we do for them on a daily basis, but it just doesn't always happen. And so all of these really high emotions coming from our kids, understandably, and then our expectation of how this day is going to go, when those clash, it can make it a very, very difficult day for both us and our children. And so, here on my channel, I don't like to ever leave it at the really negative side of things. I like to give you some sort of solution. So I'm going to go through some tips that have helped us to make this day go more smoothly, in hopes that you can also have a more smooth experience on Mother's Day, whether you're currently an adoptive parent or you hope to be someday. So I think the number one biggest thing we can do as adoptive moms to help our kids through these emotions. So I think the biggest thing we need to have in mind as we approach Mother's Day as adoptive moms is we need to keep our expectations low. And I know that sounds disappointing maybe or negative, but it really helps if we walk into it with a realistic expectation of what our children are going to be able to do for us and how they'll be able to celebrate us. And I think we have to remember that while we have expectations, they have a bunch of emotions going on. And so if we can set that bar much lower and just try our best to get through the day and to make it somewhat enjoyable, that is really going to help, rather than if you wake up on Mother's Day saying, all right, when are my kids going to make me breakfast in bed? And then they're going to give me a big card and they're going to give me a big hug and they're going to list off 25 reasons why they love me so much, because that's probably not going to happen. If it does, that's amazing. I think most biological children don't go that far. They don't think about that. They're kids, They're not just like that thoughtful at those ages oftentimes. So I really think that setting those lower expectations, I'm going to call them more realistic expectations, you can help both yourself and your child to not feel that pressure that this day has to be something huge and big and super exciting. And my second tip is that we need to allow space for our child to feel anger or sadness on this day. If we walk into this day saying, hey, this day is about me and you need to just suck it up and deal with it and go along with it, it's just not going to go well. Now, there's a possibility your child will be fine and won't have a hard time with Mother's Day. That can happen. I have kids who it's like, no big deal. But I have another kid who it is a big deal and it can be an issue. And so allowing them space to step away, to spend some time by themselves, to not have these expectations that they're going to give you a present or all these things, or just allowing them a space to talk about things that are sad for them about this day will go a long way with building trust with your child and letting them know that you understand where they're coming from. And you might hear something like, I wish I was with my real mom. And instead of getting defensive and getting upset, really think about that, because they didn't say, you're a horrible mom, I wish I wasn't with you. They just said, I really wish I was with my real mom. And so dig into that with them. Be like, yeah, I understand. I would really feel that way too in your situation. I can imagine you miss some of the good memories you had, and that would be really hard. Like, just approaching it with empathy can help a lot. And this is also the time, if you're married and you have a spouse, like, have them tap in, have your husband be like, they're going to handle those conversations on this day so that you don't necessarily have to. But, if you're willing to and you're able to, I think it goes a long way for them to hear that you are not angry at them for having those feelings, that you can understand where they're coming from. And it's going to build up trust where they feel like they can open up to you about their feelings again and again, which is what we want as parents. And going along with allowing space for those different feelings, and maybe feelings that could be more difficult for us to face as the adoptive parent. So my third tip is to find a way to honor their bio mom on Mother's Day in conjunction with them honoring you in some way. So I know this can be tricky if you don't have any contact with bio family. Obviously, it's going to look different than if you do. But I think that if you do have contact with their bio family, giving your child the option to draw their mom a picture or make her a card, or even if you don't have the physical address where you can mail it, maybe it's something where you can take a picture and send it to them or something like that. Anything, you can ask them, would you like to make your mom a card? Would you like to write a note to her? Would you like to do something like that? If you have contact with the bio family, not only is this really helpful for your kids to realize, like, okay, my adoptive mom and my bio mom are not enemies. They are two different people with two different roles in my life, and they're both important. And I think it goes a long way to show your kids that you're okay with them celebrating their biological mom. You're not threatened by it. And in fact, you're encouraging it. You're going out of your way to give them an idea. Now, there are going to be kids who just have no interest in doing this. They're going to be like, no, I don't want to. I've had kids, even the same kids who struggle with difficulties with Mother's Day, not want to make a card for their mom. And we have to respect that as well. And I just always leave it open and say, hey, if that's something you want to do, I would be happy to send it to her. I'd be happy to take a picture and email it to her or something like that. Just shows that you are open to that. You're open to that relationship in some way happening. And in the past, even if my kids don't make anything for their bio mom, I usually make a point to send her an email on that day and just be like, hey, I hope you have a good Mother's Day. Like, I just want you to know I'm thinking of you, and I really appreciate that you brought life to these awesome kids, and just like finding a way to have a touch point with her, because she was just she was negligent. She wasn't doing anything crazy. And so I really don't view her as this villain or anyone that's to be feared or to be hated. I view her as a person with struggles and who's made some bad choices, but someone who's still deserving of being treated kindly. And so I have gone out of my way to do that even when my kids don't express interest in making something like that. And I think it's meant a lot to her. So that's just a tip if you do have contact with bio parents. Now, if you don't, let's say that you adopted your child as an infant, it's a closed adoption, or you adopted internationally and there's no possible way for you to get in contact, or the child's parent has, just is completely unsafe and no contact is possible. There are still ways that you can honor their biological mom. So there are a couple ideas different families have done. One could be like lighting a candle, like maybe at a Mother's Day meal, if you're eating a meal at your house, you light a candle in honor of their mom who's not with them today, but we want to still celebrate her. You could have them color a picture and put it up on the wall and say, this one's for your bio mom, your tummy mommy, or whatever you call her in your family, just so that they can have a way to honor her. Or maybe if it's an older kid, you could have them, you could give them a chance to talk through some of those positive memories that they have with their mom, if that's something they want to talk about, and maybe help them make like a little journal that has some of their memories for their mom. Or you could even have them write a note to their mom, even if it's not something you can send, just to let them get that out and to express that. I think that can be really powerful. So there are a lot of different ways. Maybe you get, a bouquet of flowers that you put in a certain spot, and it's like, these flowers, when we look at them, are to honor your bio mom and what she has done for you by bringing you onto this earth and caring for you while she was pregnant and things like that. So there are a lot of different ways you can do it, but just get creative. Think of a way that you could honor the bio mom in some way, whether it's with direct contact or if it's some indirect way that's more just for your children to have that space to do so. And I do think, like I said, that coming from you as the adoptive mom goes a long way in building trust and helping your kid not have to feel those torn loyalties, because you're showing them, hey, this is not a competition. Like, I'm not like, hey, I'm your mom and she's not, and I'm the only one who matters. It really shows them that you are open to them having room in their hearts for more than one mom in their lives, just in the same way that as a mom, we have room in our hearts for more than one child. Another quick tip I have is find a way that you can celebrate yourself on Mother's Day, or if you're married, that your spouse can celebrate you, even if your kids are not in the emotional place to do that. So while it might be really difficult to really make Mother's Day a big deal at your house, because if your kids are very sensitive to it, maybe you can plan that you and your husband go on a date on your own, where there's not this pressure from your kids to act a certain way or to be all appreciative of you the entire time. Or maybe if you're not married, you could go out with a friend and you could say, hey, Mother's Day is really hard for me. Could we go out together? Because I do want to celebrate the fact that I'm a mom, but it's just too hard for my kids to be a part of that. Find something you can do. Maybe you'll just treat yourself to something. Treat yourself to going by yourself to get a manicure or a pedicure, like something you don't normally do, or a massage, or, it doesn't have to be those like stereotypical self-care things, but those all sound nice to me, and they're not something I do very often. So I think there are ways to celebrate yourself or ask other people in your life, hey, can you help me make this day special or meaningful, because my kids are not going to be able to handle it. I think that's fine. That's open communication. And last but not least, here's one more tip. Just understand that it will most likely get better with time. I think every year that your children are with you and they understand that you are not against their biological parent, that there's not a big competition going on, that they understand you're willing to hear out their emotions and not expecting them to be a certain way, you're going to build up a lot of trust and a lot of understanding. And I really, truly think things can improve over time. So if you found any of these tips helpful, if you could give this video a thumbs up, it really helps other people find my videos. And also, since you made it all the way to the end of this video, that means you're my favorite. Don't tell the others. And so I have a secret question for you, so I can kind of see who are my people who hang with me till the very end of my videos. So today in the comments, I would like you to give an idea for Mother's Day, like a Mother's Day gift or something that's not just the typical like flowers or chocolate or something like that. If you are a mom, what would you actually like for Mother's Day? And if you are not a mom, but you have a mom, that you've gotten them something really cool before, go ahead and put that in the comments. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of my video. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week.